Hi, this is Joe Jasper, and a couple of people have asked me what the order of my process is. Uh, I wish I could say that it's always consistent, but this is what I've been doing of late. So here's an image in Lightroom that I'm going to export into Topaz Studio. Go up to Photo, Edit in, and then choose Edit in Topaz Studio. So I already have that and a couple of steps already open to keep this video as short as possible. So I'm going to click over there. This is the image right out of Lightroom with its crop from Lightroom. This nice showy great blue heron at Point Reyes, California. So my usual step is to start out and say, let's close all these creative things, and I go to Plugins and DeNoiseAI, and that takes a second to open. And by the way, I'm pausing to try to save you some torture. It only takes a few seconds with my graphics card to get to this point. This is the splash screen edit page that you can close and disable if you wish. And what I usually do is go ahead and click the auto button to let the program decide how much noise it wants to remove. But I usually will take that enhance sharpness button slider all the way down and keep the recover details where it is as well. Because we're going to use SharpenAI, that's what I do. But if you don't have SharpenAI, you can use the enhanced sharpness, and you usually get pretty good results. You also have the choice, by the way, of looking at AI Clear and deciding if that's a better process for you. Either looks pretty darn good. And then, of course, you can choose the auto brighten if you want. I'm going to keep it off. Doesn't seem to make much difference. You can try these sliders and see what you want, but what I usually do now is go to 200%. And what I'm looking for is the degree of noise grain in the background and in the subject. So I can see quite a bit of luminoise if I look at the original versus afterwards, and I'm going to blow this up to 400% so maybe you can see that too, thanks to the limits of YouTube. So here's after denoise. So it's quite smooth even at 400%. There's just the tiniest hint of grain. But there's the original, and you can see how noisy it was, both in the dark parts of the bird and in the background. I'm going to go, for my sake, down to 200%. And what I'm looking for is to preserve just a touch of that grain without it looking noisy. And I can look around at the bird versus the background. Because if I choose to later, I can mask out or partially mask out, meaning to a degree or selective parts of the subject or the background, how much noise reduction I want. So I want to get it right for the whole image here, and then if I choose to, I can go back. So in recovering details, we'll often reintroduce some of the noise. As I see here, it is. So I don't like that. For your satisfaction, I'm going to put enhanced sharpness in here. And it does a pretty good job. We'll see if we can do better with AI Sharpen. So I lowered the remove noise just a touch from 0.07 to 0.06, and I'm seeing just a hint of grain at 200%. I might even be able to go less, but what I really need to look for is where it counts. So where it really tends to count is in the bird's head and the feathers that are most in focus. How much smoothing is this denoise causing? How much can I get that back with AI Sharpen? I need to be able to preserve some detail. So once I'm happy with my level of noise reduction, maybe we'll go with 0.5 and 0.05, I mean, and go ahead and apply it. So I've already done that, and instead of affecting the original image, because we were using a plugin, it brings it back in as its own new image to the image tray. And so if you click on the little pencil, you can go in and rename it whatever you want. Instead of point res 5266 edit 1, I renamed mine to include denoise. So if I end up piling 15 different images in my tray of this one bird, I know what I've done to that layer. So the next thing I do is go to my plugins, and I go to SharpenAI. Close the instructional screen. And again, I'm going to bring suppress noise all the way down. And I think the type of image blur that I have is probably from any bird movement I have. This was at ISO 1200, by the way, so not a terribly noisy image to start with. And I usually have the automatic update preview turned to no. So I did use stabilize, remove blur. I didn't have to do any noise suppression. I actually added a little bit of grain. That very fine grain actually helps to preserve or bring back some of the detail in these fine features. And then I'm going to just apply that. And this is going to take a second to bring it back in. So it's almost done. This has taken it about a minute and a half. It's about an 18 megapixel image with the crop. And it brought in the new image right here. So this is the actual newest AI Sharpen that I just created with you, but pausing so you didn't have to watch the little clock tick. And you can notice if we zoom in a little bit here, perhaps, there are some bugs flying around that I really don't think are helping the image. So what I did was used the healing tool and just go around and zap your bugs. I don't like that one. Just go around and remove little distractions from the image. Unless you like leaving bugs in. And now we have a pretty clean image. So what if I didn't need to sharpen the whole image? For example, the background didn't need any sharpening. Now in this case, it's okay to sharpen it. But if, let me done that one. If I did have a part of the image that didn't need sharpening, I could go back to my denoise layer, which was the one previous to this. I could then click, left click, and drag my new sharpened image on top of that. and then I could create a mask. So you can use any of the tools that you think are appropriate. Color is a good way to get started on this one. Adjust the range. Adjust the contrast. And if necessary, the density. To get as much of the bird automatically showing through. So remember, black conceals, white reveals. And I can go back to my white brush and make sure his or her neck and head are going to be sharpened. Right, so you want to use a white brush and be more careful than I'm being. Just go in and make sure you're getting everything that you want sharpened to be white. And look over at your mask. If there's something missing, go back in, fill it in. So that's the way you would take away sharpening of the background and leave the bird only sharpened. Okay. Now, to prove it, let's go in here, zoom in, and I'll zoom it in further for you. First of all, there's the flies that we got rid of just earlier. Right? Remember your flies? And if we turn off the mask, you can see, at least I can see, how much sharper the grasses are here. Turn it back on. Now, I don't need the mask. I'm happy with the grass being sharp in this case. So I just go back and use my sharpened image, rename it. Sharp. Get rid of this one from earlier. And now you can go ahead and apply any of your effects. Someone may ask, why did you wait to remove some of those distractions until now? If you've ever used the healing tool, sometimes you'll notice an edge develops, something sharp looking, and then any sharpening effort that you make will enhance that distraction further rather than lessen it. So why not wait until you have your almost final image? So now I'm coming in, I'm going to go to my effects, and I have one that just brings in basic adjustments, brightness, contrast, dehaze, precision contrast, precision detail, tone curves, and vignette, and HSL color tuning. So 8 different adjustments that you can then go in and adjust the amount that is in the image, tweak it a little bit, like so. Maybe go back to basic and make sure that we're not blowing that white level. Look at your RGB. Make sure our detail is still there. Says I'm doing okay. And if you want, bring that black level down further. And again, the same thing, we could mask off this background should we choose to. Okay, so starting to blow the blacks a little there. Not every image needs to go all the way to black and all the way to white, but adjust it to your needs. For example, something you're seeing through the fog and you're just looking at that and nothing close to you, it's going to be pretty flat. It's not going to be purely black or purely white. You don't want to destroy that effect. So here it's looking pretty good. If I want to, I can look at any of these and tweak them further. So in my basic 8, I have mild adjustments of all these to do my wildlife and landscapes, a little bit of tweaking, and then I can apply that. Now I have what I would consider a pretty acceptable result, but if I want to get more creative with this, I could come in and start doing something artistic, like say, gee, you know, all this grass, I want to desaturate it and lighten it so that there's more contrast between the bird and the background. Contrast of color as well as, but mostly of brightness. And then what I would do is create a mask based on color or luma, whatever I want to do. Maybe color would have been better. See if it works. Well, like we found before. Okay, so I've taken a few secs to try to get us a pretty complete mask, just in case we want to use this effect that we're doing here, and also to make it repeatable, right? You don't want to have to go through drawing your mask each and every time. So what I'm going to do is in the mask menu, so if we go back up to this HSL color tuning menu, we clicked on that, we got a mask, we created our mask, and there's 2 hamburger menus, the one for HSL tuning overall and the one for the masks. So I'm going to click on the hamburger menu for show making mask menu and say copy mask. Now the one thing is though that it's backwards. White is revealing what we're doing instead of the background. We got the bird, so let's invert the mask. And now you can see the light background versus the preserved bird. And if we want, we can go into something like precision contrast, paste our mask. So we got to click on the mask icon, go to the hamburger of the mask menu, paste the mask, and say, I want a little more contrast in the bird, and decide which levels of contrast are going to help make that image pop for you. So remember, these are feathers. You don't want it too harsh. You know, like this would be way wrong, right? It's created for painterly HDR type looks, but maybe a little over the top for the reality of the situation. So it looks like the low and the micro contrast are what's helping this image. And we didn't have to recreate the mask, right? We already got it in the previous one. So that's looking pretty good. And from this point forward, you can apply any of your other creative effects, whether it's a painterly effect or a texture. And once again, you can use your saved mask. I'm just going to duplicate and say save to take that hopefully back into Lightroom. Although I haven't signed this yet because I'm not sure what else I'm going to do with it. But that's my basic process. So for example, here I brought in a little bit of chamois glaze, only 22%, and I brought our, pasted our mask back in, inverted it, and I used the adjust mask by clicking here and brought my density up because I wanted that chamois glaze to partially affect the bird, but mostly affect the background. White conceals, black reveals, and shades of gray in between. So let's click that. And then I'm going to bring in Open Recent, my white signature, perhaps see how that looks. Hopefully relatively unobtrusive. And I think I'm going to use either the lighten screen or color dodge. Color dodge usually works the best for me. Make it subtle so it doesn't overpower the picture. Call it good. The end.